What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. Today I'm looking ahead to KSW 101, Le Classique, coming all the way from Paris, France, on December 20th, 2024. It's I suppose you could call this the last big card before Christmas, unless I'm missing out on something else, which I very well could be, but that's a discussion maybe for another day. But this is a big showing here from KSW. Obviously, in the main event, they have Salahdine Parnasse, their big star, who obviously they re-signed, and the double champ who went up and tried for the triple championship, but he's again defending his lightweight belt here against Wilson Varela. And we'll get into that fight in a second. But on the rest of the card, they have some names people would know as well in the co-main event. David Gallon against Marcin Held is on this. Alex Lahore fighting Arthur Spinziak. Elijah Dye is on this. Mikel Lebu against Romain Babin. So a good few names that people would know. And a 9-fight card as well, as at time of recording. Now that obviously can change, go up or down, because we know what MMA is like. But so good, quick card of a Friday evening, which I think I think we all like. I think a lot of people like Friday cards, and a lot of people like less fights on a card. Maybe unless you're going to the event, but I think that is that's a good way of doing things, especially if you're a KSW or a Cage Warriors, or even I would say even like the likes of PFL or Bellator, things like that. I think do as much as you can that the fans like to get them in, to make it easier for them to watch, and I think that is part of it too. Now, this card is very interesting because it's obviously gone down over in Paris, and I'm very interested to see what the crowd is like, how much KSW can pull in, because they have Parnasse in the main event, and as we've seen over the last while in France, with the likes of Cedric Doumbé and the Lazy King and others, the French crowd really get behind their guys. And if they know they're good, they will really, really, really come out and support them. And I think there's no doubt about it that Salahdine Parnasse is really, really, really good. And the fact that KSW, I suppose, have put so much behind him, we don't know what he's getting paid or anything like that, but it would seem like he's getting paid a whole lot to keep him from going to one of the other big promotions. And I know a lot of people were looking for him. That not only did they keep him, paid him a lot, but they have done what a lot of promotions, I suppose, aren't doing at the moment, and bringing their best guy to his home city or his home country or whatever it might be. We look at Ian Gary recently, like they can't get the UFC to come to Ireland, and and it's like it does happen sometimes, no doubt about it. But like even your Dakota Cheva calling for, I need an event in Manchester, and Brendan Loughnane saying the same, and others, Paddy Pimblett, I want to go to Liverpool, and it's. It feels like something that happened more and more before, and maybe it's happening less and less now. Maybe that's a bit unfair, but it just, or maybe I'm just thinking of a few recent examples, and maybe it's not a trend, but I don't know. It seems to me like it is. Maybe people can give me examples here that say contrary, but especially like in the bigger promotions, the ones who are bringing in a lot of money, who've been around for a long time. Who have people worldwide. Like maybe it's easier for the likes of Cage Warriors do it very well. Obviously, they've a Dublin card coming up here, and I'm sure James Sheehan will be on it. If they have a Liverpool card, I'm sure the next up and coming lads from Paddy Pimblett's gym will be on it, and so forth. So it's maybe easy for them. And look for KSW as well in their region. Obviously, they do it very, very well. But this is kind of stepping out of their region a little bit, and I give them massive credit for them. And again, it's been it's been a good year, I think, for KSW, but a very, very different year, I suppose, because has there ever been a year in mixed martial arts where I suppose European MMA has been as much maybe to the forefront as before? Like, I think the big cards that KSW have done, Octagon have obviously emerged as a real contender worldwide and have gotten people talking about them and putting on big stadium shows and everything like that. Obviously, we always talk about Cage Warriors, putting on some great shows, but like Octagon, I don't know, was it this year, maybe the end of last year, Octagon had their had their TV show as well. And one thing, and obviously we've had PFL Europe, they've done great things, and they've got some very, very good talent as well. And one thing I constantly mention on previews, whether it's for any of those upcoming promotions, and you'll hear me talking about it today, there is a load of fighters who have fought. Okay, I'll see someone on a Cage Warriors card who was in KSW 3 months ago. I'll see someone in a KSW card who was on Octagon who was on, BFL Europe or something like that. It's happening over and over and over again. Like, I know KSW there, it's a couple of years ago now, but they signed Donovan Desmond, and I was like, oh God, he was a Cage Warriors contender. Matters Flaminas he was about to fight for the Cage Warriors. Next thing, he's on KSW as well, and I funny enough, I see him sparring with Ian Gary as well there a couple of weeks ago. So it's and you know what? That's great, because there's more opportunities for fighters, and I think the European promotions are really good at recognizing talent and not needing them to be like, oh, you have to have won 5 fights in a row in Cage Warriors or KSW, wherever it might be, to get a shot in that promotion. I think someone like Varela. Now he has done that, to be fair, but even if he hadn't, I think if he had a good few wins in a row outside, came into KSW and got a title. We see it in Cage Warriors all the time. We see it in many of the promotions all the time. And, the UFC are kind of doing that a little bit now as well. You see it with Kaya Sakura and stuff like that. So I think, and just, to reiterate that, I think it's been a real leading year for European MMA. I think there's been some great stuff. And even like if you go towards the UFC and you see, some of the big names emerging, a lot of them are coming out of Europe, whether it's Paddy Pimblett or, Tom Aspinall or Ian Gary, or even, over in PFL with Paul Hughes. And, we obviously, we've seen a lot of the Polish fighters doing so well, whether it's from Joanna Jędrzejczyk and Karolina Kowalkiewicz to, Matthias Gamrot and many others as well. It's been a phenomenal year. And then obviously all the Russian fighters in killing the game in PFL. It's been a wonderful year, I suppose. And this KSW, I feel like, and the reason I say this on the KSW previews, I don't think KSW actually get enough credit. I think KSW should be in the conversation behind the UFC with all the chasing back. They really should, because what they have done in terms of very good pay, very good events, very good fighters, and consistency for years and years and years, what other promotions aside from the UFC have done that? There really isn't any. And you can't call against maybe the PFL who are newer and others who are newer as well, but KSW have done a fantastic job for a good amount of years now, and they deserve a whole lot of credit. And honestly, if you're thinking about that and you're thinking about tuning into this card, tune into it, because this is going to be really, really good. And let's get straight to it, and let's talk about the main event: Salahdine Parnasse versus Wilson Varela. Parnasse now 27 years of age. By the time, 27 years of age. He only turned 27 last week, and 19-2. We all know, the 2 losses, lost to Daniel Torres and ended up beating him. What was it? Only it was around a year later, I think, wasn't it? Around the end of the same year. And then he obviously lost to Adrian Bartosinski in a welterweight fight to become a 3-division champ, which is very much not easy. But what a fighter he has been for KSW for all the years he's been there. Signed in 2017, and the guys he's fought: Lucas Rosowski, Artur Sowiński, Martin Vorshek, Roman Sabinski. Look at even Bushinger; he's still killing the game over in Octagon at the moment. And the Daniel Torres fights, the Rajewski fights, the Rukala fights, and Valerie Marcia last time out. The record is absolutely fantastic. 11 wins to boot as well to go with it. This guy is a different level of fighter, and he's really, really, really talented. And to look at his game as well in terms of the wins, these are his last few wins. He's one loss in the middle of it, but head kick knockout, soccer kick to the body, rear naked choke. He's a decision over Daniel Torres, and then a submission win at KSW 61. We're at KSW 101 now. That's 40 events to 2021. He's only one decision win in all that time. So that's a serious streak of knocking lads out or submitting lads. And a lot of them as well, four fourth round finishes in a row he had. You know, and I don't know about you, but I love that sort of stuff. I love that sort of stuff. And that's the type of fighter he is. You know, he will break you down minute by minute by minute, you know. And he's developed that in his game. Really has, you know, there's highlight reels shrouded as well. But what Salahdine Parnasse does is he just, I mentioned, like, you know, it's death by 1,000 cuts, really. He overwhelms his opponent slowly. Just goes at it and at it and at it. And by the time you know what it's a bit like, and this is going to be a weird comparison, I suppose, but it's a bit like Merab Dashvili without the wrestling. Now, and there is bits and pieces of wrestling there, but I hope you get what I mean in a second. Like, what does Dashvili do? He takes you down, push you against the cage, and by the time you know what's what, you're not going to know what's what, because he is so relentless at his game. And I think Parnasse is similar to that, but it's in like I'm just going to take away every bit of your technical game and impose mine on it. So I'm going to push forward jab, I'm going to hook, I'm going to put pressure on. If you want to come forward, I'll let you come forward, I'll step off and I'll throw a little counter, and I'll get back in place and I'll start pressuring again. And just every part of the game, he will dominate and dominate and dominate until you're kind of scratching your head going, what do I do next? Like Merab. But Merab does it in maybe more of a taxing way physically. I think Parnasse does it more of a taxing way mentally, which, you know, you probably talk to a lot of fighters and they might say that's worse, you know? And he finishes people because of that. They're like, they have to do something wild, or they have to step in a certain way. And he never gives up in his game either. Like, never gives up in his game. And sometimes that can be an issue for fighters. Sometimes they should give up in their game, but not for him. He's absolutely fantastic. So we've given Parnasse the big build up there. And I suppose it's hard to look at that and then go to another guy and say, oh, you know, this guy is going to deliver him even. But I genuinely think Winston Varela has a chance here. You know, I watched a good few of his fights. Do you know what he really has? What he has here is two things that you need against Salahdine Parnasse, right? He's young. He just turned 29 in August, so like he's not over 30 yet. He's experienced. He's 17 fights. I mean, people might look and say, "Oh, he's lost 5. He's lost 5 times." But I would nearly argue as well, right? He made his debut in 2014. He won 2 fights. He lost 2 fights, and then we didn't see him for another 5 years, right? So take 2 and 2 away from that. You know, he's 10-3. 3 of those fights, if you look at some of those fights he's had, right? Mikel Dufour in 2022, you know, for a guy who on his comeback was 3 or 4 fights in. Mikel Dufour, we see what Mikel Dufour has done in PFL afterwards. Look really good. Islam Reda, he was in the PFL MENA final only until he got injured. These are really good guys. He went to decision with both of them. Now, he lost a fight before that as well, but he lost 3 fights in a row. And I feel like, you know, watching bits and pieces of him and watching some of the fights since, he is a completely different fighter, right? He is so much more comfortable. He looks like a guy who has found his game, right? And what I mean by that is, like, you look at some of the guys he's fought. He's fought Lucas Rajewski, and it's his brother, isn't it, Sebastian? And then Marian Zalewski in the last fight at KSW 93. You know, those 6 wins in a row, he's 5 finishes. So, like, watching him, I wrote down, I meant to say as well before I even started, shout out to my guy Sean Denny for help with all the pronunciations and the little intricacies of KSW. He's absolutely fantastic. If you're not following Sean at Denny Rants over on Twitter, he's the guy to go to for the KSW and Octagon and all of that, and he's always a great help to me. But one of the things I was kind of saying to Sean as well was this left hook he throws. This left hook, like the first thing that went to my notes, left hook. It is really, really good. But that would be a bit unfair to him, I think, to just say, oh, left hook. What he is to me is a guy who's found himself, a guy who has found his game. And I was trying to think of someone who he was like, and I was looking through some of the some of the rankings, and I always fall on, I don't know why, for every fighter I always fall on Leon Edwards, but this might be a tad of a stretch, right? But I kind of went to, he reminds me of the featherweights in the UFC. Now what I mean by that is, and this is a bit of a big build up, but like a mix between kind of Topuria and Volkanovski. I know what I just said, but in terms of the way he tries to fight on the feet, at least, the wrestling, I think I watched one of his fights and he was taken down very, very, very easily at one stage. And I know Parnasse can take lads down, and I think if he had seen that, and I'm sure he has, that could be a big part of the game. But let's talk about the striking for a second. The way he hand fights, the way he uses, and actually I didn't look up his height, but is it here? It is. He's 6 foot. Salahdine Parnasse is 5'8". I think that's a real advantage here. A real advantage, because he uses that height and length so well that, a guy who is a 4-inch advantage over in terms of height is going to be massive for him. Again, that left hook is going to be able to land a touch easier because there's so much of a range in which he can land it. And now Parnasse is going to have the speed advantage, you would think, as well. But at the same time, I think Varela is a really fast guy. And I'm pretty sure, and let me just look again, I think I did a preview for one of Varela's fights a good while back. It might have been even, KSW 69, which, back in 2022. And I kind of remember thinking like, oh, this is a good, honest fighter, but, is he gonna reach that next level? And it's, he's taken a few losses since, but the wins, I think, have brought him on. And what I think he brings to a fight against Salahdine Parnasse that most people won't is what I talked about earlier about Parnasse breaking lads and forcing them to kind of, breaking them. He breaks them, right? I don't think he'd be breaking Varela. I really don't. I think Varela is the type of guy who stays really staunch in the way he fights, like Parnasse himself, and buys into what he does. And that to me leads to a very, very interesting fight. A really interesting fight. Like, I'm thinking about the betting show as well for this. And look, if Parnasse, if you straight up who's going to win the fight, you'd be a fool, I think, to pick against Salahdine Parnasse if you're given straight money or whatever. But I don't know, depending, like, if Varela's over plus 300 or anything like that, which I think he, let me just look again. I looked at it earlier on. He is plus 450. Honestly, I think that might, that was spoiler alert here, but that might be my flyer of the week, because this guy is dangerous. This guy is dangerous, and he has the ability to win. But at the same time, 5 rounds against Salahdine Parnasse, is going to be tough. Again, just on the size thing though, like Parnasse lost at welterweight. This is at lightweight. He's the featherweight champion as well as the lightweight champion. So this is a bit in the middle, I suppose, for him. And a lot of the reason why he lost, I think, up at welterweight was because of the size. So let's see if Varela can use that, and let's see how this fight goes. But I think this is going to be a real battle of techniques, standing, and I think Parnasse, if he's smart, and which he is, I think he'll throw in a few takedowns here, because Varela he has an issue. There's no doubt about it. He has an issue there. So let's see how that goes. Right, let's that's the main fight on this card, no doubt about it. But we will touch on some of the other ones. Co-main event, Davy Galan versus Marcin Held. Obviously, Davy, one of the best French exports, I suppose, over the last while. He's 35 years of age now. He hasn't had the best run, I suppose, over the last couple of years. Lost to Attila Kormaz and Daniele Scatizzi in there. And I suppose, maybe a touch of, maybe there were a little bit of surprises considering what he'd done before. Like, he was on an unbelievable run before, like beating the likes of Charlie Leary, Ken Moose, Ross Pearson. So, he's been in there with everyone, really. He's fought Daniel Skabinski, even back down through the years, Mikel Laboud, who's on this card as well. All the way back to making his debut in 2011, which you don't see often. And I suppose Marcin Held is a similar type of guy. This is his 40th mixed martial arts fight, which is crazy. He's only 32 years of age, made his debut all the way back in 2008. And, going down through Sherdog there, one name that sticks out is he fought Michael Chandler in Bellator, and that he was obviously in Bellator for a while and fought some names like Felipe Nova and Rich Clementi and others like that, and was there for a good long time. Beat Patricki, and obviously was in there with Will Brooks, and that was a title fight, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken. But came over to the UFC and didn't have the best run in the world, I suppose. Lost to Diego Sanchez and a couple more. Did beat Nasrat Haqparast, which at the time was a great win in 2017, because Haqparast was looked at as, I suppose, a top guy. But he had these 4 fights, and I know ACB were paying a lot of money around in, and he won a few fights there. Then we saw him in the PFL tournament. Again, beat Nathan Schulte, who was a champion, which was a massive win. Ended up losing to him again, though, after that, and losing to Aubin Mercier. So it was a tough run. But, I suppose he has come back to KSW, I suppose, for the next run of his career, and has been 1-1 since. Looked great against Roman Skaminski. I'm pretty sure I picked against him coming into that. He lost to Raul Tuta before that. He'd beaten Miles Price as well before that. And it was one of those fights, I suppose, against Skaminski. You're thinking if he lost that, even at 32 years of age, that this might be the end of the road for a guy like Marcin Held. But no, absolutely not. And he's back now. And I think this is good matchmaking. You have Davy Galan, a guy who's, I suppose, known for his striking, but is well able to mix it on the ground as well, and has a good few submissions in there. I suppose he's best known for the Rolling Thunder knockout of Ross Pearson and the run after it. But Marcin Held, we all know about Marcin's submission game and his ground game. 15 wins by submission. This one is an interesting one. I think, you look at a guy like Marcin Held, and what I just said about him, like, you're thinking, okay, well, that last fight, if he had won it, could it have been the end of the road for him? You're thinking for Davy Galan, if he doesn't win this, could this be the end of the road for him? So you never know what's going to happen. Davy Galan could look good like Marcin Held did last time out, and end up winning the fight that way. I think one stat that I looked at for Davy Galan, what has he had now? He's had 33 fights. He's only been submitted twice in that time. And I believe those were relatively early in his career as well. Yeah, 2013 and 2011. So he's not a guy who's getting submitted all the time. If you're going in there against Marcin Held, that's the way Marcin wins these fights. Okay, he's a lot of decision wins in there as well, but like if he beats you, he's probably going to submit you. And for Davy, you're probably thinking this is this is a good matchup. A guy who maybe he can win against on the feet if he can stop the fight from being taken down. He should be the favourite here, and I think I'm probably just going to lean towards. Davy in here. He's a big underdog as well, plus 225. But we'll talk more. Obviously, I'll give my full picks on the betting show. But interesting fight there, and I think if it stays on the feet, Davy, if Martin can get into the ground, he'll have a chance. But I wouldn't rule him out either there. There's some very interesting fights after that. The standout one to me is Laid Zaruni against Alien van der Merkt. Watched a good bit of this van der Merkt guy, and 8-0, 31 years of age, and he looks a real athlete. This is his first jump up into KSW. He's fought in LFL, which is a good promotion around Fight Pass and things, and he's had has he finished all of his fights? He has 4 wins, 4 wins by knockout, 4 wins by submission. And looking at him, this is a guy who early in his career, all submissions, late in his career, all knockouts. He actually has a win over Slim Trabelsi as an amateur as well, which is no mean feat to be able to beat Slim Trabelsi. And this is he's a heavyweight. This is he's fighting a middleweight now, so very, very interesting. This guy is, he pulls guard in some of his fights, but his hands are looking better all the time. An athlete, a big, powerful athlete, and absolutely no joke whatsoever. I think this is the type of guy you need to be looking at. He's coming from Belgium as well, obviously, so not too far away from France here. 6'2", big. Interesting guy. He's fighting Laird Zaruni, who's still only 29 years of age. Amazing. It feels like he's been around for a long time. He made his debut all the way back in 2015. He's been in there with some very good guys, even early in his career. Fought Fares Ziam, but he obviously made his way over to Bellator and fought Norbert Navinyi Jr., which was a very, very tough fight. Then fought Tarek Suleiman, who was the champion over there. Tarek was in there with Will Fleury a couple of times. And, most recently, he was in Brave, and then obviously made his way over to KSW. And he said, going around in KSW, okay, he lost his last fight, but he won 2 before that and got a couple of finishes. And I think that's what you need to be worried about against Laird Zaruni. Finishes. He has 12 finishes and he's 13 wins. Obviously fighting out of France as well, so he's going to be the hometown guy here. Does get submitted an awful lot though, 6 submission losses in his career, and I think that's going to be the maybe the win and losing of this fight here, because Mert is unbelievable in that area. And I think for a guy, another thing about Van der Merkt as well, he's only 8 fights, but he's a lot of amateur fights. I mentioned the Trabelsi one, but he's also been over, fought over in Cage Warriors and around different promotions, over in Bushido and LFL and as a pro. So this is the guy in the undercard I think you need to be looking out for. And he's been given the tough matchmaking, I think. So interesting there. Another couple of fights let's touch on. Haji Ndai. At 33 years of age now, he's fighting Ramazan Jimbiev out of France. He's 5-2 at 25 years of age. Lost his last fight in KSW, but he won his first 2 before that. And he's an interesting type of guy. He has power in his hands. As I said, a younger guy than we're used to seeing in mixed martial arts. He trains in Aubervilliers with Salahdine Parnasse in his gym. The big power, but when you look at, when at this stage of your career where a 47-second armbar, that tells you kind of something as well. And I think what they're doing here is putting him in with Ndai, he's only 6-2, but this guy has been around for a long, long time. Made his debut back in 2018, took a good few years off, and he came back in Cage Warriors and he fought Adam Cullen and Adam Shelley, 2 of their top prospects, and that'll tell you what they think of him. He got a really good win in 2023 over in KSW or in Cage Warriors, and then got a win in KSW after that. So he's on a good run now, and I think anyone will tell you about Ndai, who's been following the scene, that this guy is talented and is well able to go in there and cause an upset. And I think for Ramazan Jimbiev, I'd be very, very careful about this one. Very, very careful to go in maybe striking or trying to knock out Ndai. I know Adam Cullen knocked him out in 14 seconds, but that was after a 3-year layoff. And interesting fight. You'd have to just about favour Jimbiev, I suppose, but I don't think Ndai is going to be an easy out by any means. The next fight I want to just touch on is Romain Debien against Mikel Laboud. Obviously, these 2 guys have been around for a good while. 15 fights for Debien. Obviously, fighting out of Paris as well. He had a few fights in Bellator, and obviously was on the PFL as well this year. He lost to Tajan, but beat Nicolas Sayoli in Bellator, beat Boubacar Kamara as well. That was the card in Dublin, wasn't it, if I'm not mistaken? That was very impressive. I remember coming into that thinking Kamara was going to be a big favourite and a very, very talented guy. So that was a great win for him. He's been in there with Matty Pinaz as well, who's one of the best prospects in the world at the moment in 2021, ended up losing that fight. But I think getting back to winning ways is big for him here, and against Laboud, it's no easy fight. Laboud is over 36-7 fights into his career. Lost to Strapoli in his last fight. Obviously, Strapoli fighting the PFL main event the week before. So an interesting. Saved me a bit of time watching fights, but again, he was on a good run before that, had won 3 in a row, and Aries, an Octagon. Aries, another promotion I didn't mention earlier on. They give guys some, great background and great place to fight. But like a guy like LeBoot has just been around for so long. He's fought Ryan Scope and Tim Wilde and Stevie Ray and Timo Packalin and others like that as well. And to see him, I suppose, getting a run like this at this stage of his career, getting a chance in obviously a French guy in France and KSW is a very, very interesting. You'd have to favour Debiendo, I think, in this one. I think, for a guy like that, like Lebu, 37 years of age, I think maybe this is kind of the last chance saloon. Debian is a very fast starter as well, and I think that might trouble Lebu a little bit, and he's well able to fight on the ground. Lebu isn't the most powerful guy in the world, and I think that might suit Debian. So I think look out for that. If Lebu is to win this, I think he needs to maybe take the fight to the ground and try to look for a submission. He has a lot of submission wins, 8 submission wins, and never been submitted himself. So maybe that's the way forward for him. But for the bin, I think just throw your hands out there and see what's what, I suppose. And the rest of the fights in a lot of I suppose young up and comers on this, apart from the Alex Lahore against Artur Speziak fight. I'm always a big fan of Alex Lahore. Maybe not the cleanest record in the world. 25 and 10 at 34 years of age now. But look, he's won 2 in a row over in Brave. Lost to Jan Sardo, who had a great win there recently. And again, being in there, the likes of Patrick Kinsell and Carlos Famola and Gilton Leatherback and Nicholas Dalby and Tim Barnett and Terry Brazier and my guy Richard Kiley and all that. And there's some great wins. It was an unbelievable run at one stage of his career, which ended in Bama. And he's a good, well-rounded fighter, big power, 20 finishes in his career, 30 knockouts, 7 submissions, but gets finished a little bit himself, I suppose. And, Artur Speziak, 28 years of age. He's a guy KSW banked an awful lot on, I suppose. Put him into some big fights, and he's been around for 6 or 7 fights now in KSW after being in Cage Warriors and other places like that as well. And he lost to Matters Flaminas, who Flaminas, one of those guys who you look at Flaminas' record, look at all those guys like that who he has beaten, big up and comers, but wins over Brian Hoy and Henry Felipe show you what he's about. To knock those lads out are 2 good submission guys, and didn't get a good knockout guys, good strikers, and didn't get a big submission in his last one. That tells you an awful lot. And I think Artur will be the big favourite coming into this fight. There's no doubt about that at all. Couple of the other fights then that are on this featherweight fight between Alian Ndai and Edward Kexel out of Germany. I said Ndai. Nahai. Alian Nahai. He's 33 years of age, obviously fighting out of France. He came over from Aries as well. Very good submissions, but a lot of wins by knockout as well in his career. And then Kexel is a German guy coming over from Octagon, where he went 2-0 there. A lot of IMAF amateur fights as well. Very, very good kickboxer. So that should be an interesting one. Then we have a couple of younger guys, 2 French guys. Fabien Zabidi against Nassim Belouchi. Against Zabidi is one of these IMAF guys as well. Good kickboxer, but hasn't had the best start, obviously, to his pro career. And then Nassim on the other side of it, then he fought in that Hexagon promotion, where a lot of people are fighting in that promotion as well. Very good submissions and things like that. A few rear naked chokes in his career as well. So, but he's also lost by submission as well. So hard to call that one. You think maybe Zabidi has the amateur prowess, and so maybe might get him through there. And then there is another couple of fights on it as well. Wako Zabo against Magic Rayback. Zabo is fighting out of France. Very, very good amateur career. I think he went 8-1 as an amateur, and he's good power, good wrestling. A lot of submissions in his game as well. Rayback coming out of Poland. Again, a lot of 10 amateur fights, I believe. Fought at the IMAFs, good rear naked choke. well-rounded guy as well. So so many interesting younger guys on the card as well as the interesting older guys, and it's a good card all along. But you have to tune in for Salahdine Parnasse. This guy's one of the best fighters in the world. There's no doubt about that, and his headline fight with Winston Varela should be very, very fun. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning into today's preview. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. Please give a comment in the comment section below. Tell a friend about it as well. But until then, we'll see you all next time.